So, guys, Commanders training camp officially got underway yesterday, and on the very first day, Dan Quinn and Adam Peters met with the media for a major press conference. As expected, they were asked about some of the biggest storylines surrounding this team, and they shared several important updates that every Commanders fan should know about. From the latest injury news to training camp expectations and a few other key takeaways, there was a lot to unpack. So, in today's video, I will break down everything Dan Quinn and Adam Peters had to say and what it could mean for the Commanders moving forward. What's up, Commanders Nation? Welcome to the NFL Playbook, Commanders. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Alright, let's start with the biggest piece of news because honestly, this is the story everybody's been waiting to hear an answer on. You guys remember in our last video, I told you the Commanders let go of tight ends coach Ben Steele, and I mentioned this wasn't just some random coaching change. Ben Steele was fired because he violated team policy, and if you have been following the reports, you know it stems from him getting arrested back in June and the team deciding they simply could not move forward with him on staff. Look, it is a very unfortunate situation because everybody was excited about what Ben Steele could bring to this tight end room, especially after the work he did with a guy like Trey McBride down in Arizona. But once that policy violation happened, the writing was kind of on the wall. So naturally, the question everybody wanted answered walking into this press conference was, who is going to be the new tight ends coach? And, this was the number one question on everybody's mind. Well, Dan Quinn finally gave us the answer. Wes Welker is going to be the new tight ends coach for the Washington Commanders. Now look, this is not some outsider coming in cold. Wes Welker has already been working with this tight end room since Ben Steele was placed on leave, so there is no real transition period here. He already knows the players, he already knows the scheme, and honestly, I think that continuity is going to help this offense more than people realize. Dan Quinn made sure to say they are leaning fully into this direction with Wes Welker, and from what I'm hearing, he is going to be the guy running that room moving forward. So, that is officially settled. Ben Steele is out, Wes Welker is in, and I think this tight end group is still going to be just fine. Now, moving on from that, let's talk injuries, because there were a couple of updates here that you need to know about heading into the first practice. First one, Tress Way has a pectoral injury. Now, I know some of you saw that a bunch of punters got worked out by this team recently, and that is exactly why. Adam Peters said they are not overly worried about it. It is not expected to be a long-term thing, but Tress Way is going to be working off to the side for a little bit while he recovers. The second injury update is Kain Medrano, who's dealing with a minor hamstring injury from training in the offseason. Again, nothing serious here, and the expectation is he should be back pretty soon. But honestly, the injury news I think everybody cares about the most is the update on Trey Amos. And guys, I have to say, this might be the best possible news we could have gotten. Adam Peters said Trey Amos has actually been doing really well in his recovery. He had some soft tissue soreness, and the team simply wanted to be overly cautious with him, which is why he was placed on the PUP list. That is it. That is the whole story. There is no setback here, there is no alarm bell going off. Trey Amos is progressing well, and it sounds like he could be cleared and back out there sooner rather than later. So, take a breath on that one, because I know a lot of you were nervous when you first saw that PUP list news. Now let's shift into some of the bigger picture stuff, because Dan Quinn had a lot to say about where this team stands physically and mentally heading into camp. He said the team is in great physical condition right now, which, honestly, is a nice change of pace. If you remember the last couple of years, this roster showed up banged up and older, and it showed on the field. This year, Dan Quinn made it clear the group got younger, faster, and stronger this offseason, and it is actually showing up in how they look walking into camp. On the wide receiver front, Adam Peters basically gave the classic answer we have come to expect from him. He said they are always looking to add and always looking to improve the roster, but he did not name any specific free agents. Now look, I know a lot of you were hoping to hear something about Stefon Diggs, and honestly, I do not think that is happening. My honest read on this is the front office wants to give guys like Antonio Williams and Luke McCaffrey a real chance to grow this year instead of bringing in another veteran to eat up those reps. It might not be the answer we want, but I understand the thinking behind it. Speaking of adding players, they did officially bring in Rasul Douglas to the cornerback room, and Adam Peters actually said something kind of funny about him. He said when they saw Rasul Douglas for the first time yesterday, the first thing that stood out was just how big he is. And honestly, when you think about it, that makes sense, because guys like Amik Robertson and Mike Sainristil are on the smaller side, so adding some size and length to that cornerback room was probably a priority. Now let's talk about the two new coordinators, because this might honestly be the biggest storyline of the entire offseason for this team. Adam Peters said he loves both David Blough and Daronte Jones. He called them experienced, well-spoken, and said he is excited about the direction both of them are taking their respective sides of the ball. And look, I get it, changing both coordinators in the same offseason is a risk. But from everything being said in this press conference, the belief in this building is that it is going to pay off. They also talked a lot about Jayden Daniels, and honestly, this is exactly what you want to hear as a fan. Adam Peters said Jayden Daniels has had an incredible offseason, that he has been in the building constantly, and that he's picking up this new offense really quickly. Dan Quinn even mentioned that Jayden Daniels has shown that dog mentality since the moment this offseason began, and that hunger has been noticeable to everybody around the building. Now, on the tight end side, since we already talked about the coaching change, Adam Peters also touched on the addition of Chig Okonkwo. He said adding him allows this offense to be a lot more multiple, because now you pair him with John Bates, who is still considered one of the best blocking tight ends in the entire league. So now you've got a true receiving threat and an elite blocker in the same room, and that flexibility is something this coaching staff is genuinely excited about. There were a few smaller notes too that I want to touch on quickly. Dan Quinn talked about the green dot on defense, and he specifically mentioned Frankie Luvu and Sonny Styles as guys who could take on that role, meaning whoever gets it is going to have to be on the field for basically every single defensive package. He also confirmed the green dot is staying at linebacker this year instead of moving it to a safety like some teams do. And finally, they were asked about center Nick Allegretti, and both Dan Quinn and Adam Peters made it clear they have a lot of confidence in him going into the season. They pointed to his past reps at center and basically said they believe he is going to hold that position down just fine. Now, I also want to touch on a few things Dan Quinn said about how this camp is actually going to be run, because I think it tells you a lot about where his head is at this year. He said the definition of success at this camp is different than it was earlier in the offseason. Back then, it was mostly about individual growth, guys just getting comfortable in new roles. But now, heading into these 6 weeks, Dan Quinn said the real measuring stick is going to be team development and team execution. Basically, it is not about one guy shining anymore, it is about the whole unit coming together. And honestly, I like that mentality a lot. He also talked about how tough this camp is going to be, and he made a point to clarify that toughness here does not necessarily mean a ton of physical hitting. It is more about the mental side, guys having to prove something every single day. Dan Quinn straight up said the competition level in this building is going to be higher than it has been in years past, and I think that is exactly what this team needed after the way last season ended. One thing that stood out was Dan Quinn talking about applying the lessons from last year. He made it clear this staff is taking everything that went wrong, the mistakes, the mental letdowns, and using it as fuel for this season. He also said the energy is going to be completely different this time, admitting last year there just was not enough urgency early on. They also touched on the install process with two brand new coordinators running the show. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn said it will take roughly 11 to 12 days to fully install David Blough's offense and Daronte Jones' defense, so do not panic if the first week looks a little rough. The next couple of days will lean heavy on red zone work, plus a 2-point play drill setup as a best-of-5 competition. On the roster side, Adam Peters said special teams value and versatility matter a lot when it comes to making this 53-man roster, which explains why certain depth players tend to stick around. They also touched on the joint practices, which I know a lot of you are excited about. The Dolphins are coming back to Ashburn again this year, and later on the Commanders are heading to Baltimore, something that got canceled last year. Dan Quinn said both him and Adam Peters genuinely love these joint practices for the different level of competition it brings, and with Philadelphia, Dallas, and Seattle right out of the gate. Getting those extra physical reps in camp is going to matter heading into that gauntlet of a start. So, that is everything from this press conference. I will be back with more updates as camp continues, so make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss anything. Let me know down in the comments what you are most excited to see once real practice reps start, and I will catch you guys in the next one.